welcome to this edition of 10 in 10, where we look at 10 educational technology topics in 10 minutes, because we don't want you to get bored, or you get bored, or you get bored, or we don't want anybody to get bored. So we're going to do it really fast. And today's topic is 10 uses for mind maps. Now, mind maps are used all over our district, and you go through campuses, especially in our elementary schools, you'll see mind maps used. And I go through campuses and I see them all over the place, and I'm thinking there's got to be some different ways to use these besides just doing brainstorming. So I thought I'd give you a list of 10 uses for mind maps that maybe you may not have thought of. So let's go to that first use, and it's organizing research. The very first use is to organize research, so students can actually sit down, they can plan their research, they can talk about their sources, they can put them all in on a mind map, and that kind of organizes them for a larger project. Okay, so organizing research, that's number one. Number two is create a class syllabus. This would be something that a teacher could do, but when I was putting this up the other day, I thought this would be kind of cool for actually students to do. Students could actually create the class syllabus as they go on through the course of a year or a semester or 9 weeks or whatever, and then that class syllabus that they create as their mind map is also something that they can go back and study for those end of course exams, or the 9-week exam, or whatever they're doing. So creating a class syllabus. Teachers and students can create a class syllabus. Let's go on. KWL charts. Now, KWL charts are usually done as handouts, but you can also use them as mind maps. What I know, what I want to know, and what I learned. KWL charts, those are very familiar with our students, and that can be done in a mind map. So that's kind of cool. And by the way, what I'm using, most of what I'm using today comes from the program Inspiration, but there are lots and lots and lots of different mind mapping softwares out there. There's even websites that have mind mapping softwares, and a lot of them are just for free. So let's go to the next one. Creating an outline. One of the really cool things about these programs is that not only can you make a mind map, but as you're making the mind map, it automatically creates an outline, and vice versa. You can create an outline and then it'll make the mind map for you. And so what's really neat about these, you can move those around, you can move them up and down, you can reorder them, and as you do that, it'll also reorder the mind map. So creating an outline is a great use of these mind mapping softwares, because you can cut and paste those outlines into other things like Word documents or into PowerPoint presentations, things like that. All right. Plan a project. This kind of goes back to planning your research or doing a research, but you can actually plan a larger project using mind mapping tools. So this particular one is kind of like a voter registration or a youth voter registration thing, but any kind of large project, a science fair project, some kind of project where students are, I don't know, doing like a humanities day or some kind of robotics competition, they can plot it all out ahead of time using the mind mapping software. And this is a great way of doing it. See, a lot of times we think, our kids, they know how to do this, but if they can visualize that before they actually start doing it, then that's a great use of mind mapping software. So planning a project. Okay, our next one is compare and contrast. That's one of those topics that always come up on our standardized tests, or comparing and contrasting things. And comparing and contrast isn't just an English language arts skill. It also happens in science, social studies. Compare Abraham Lincoln to, I don't know, George Washington. Compare the protist to the bacteria. Compare, I don't know, living to non-living. These are all kinds of things that can be done on a compare and contrast chart. Usually, again, these are things that are usually handouts that we give to our students, but they can be done online with mind maps. And one of the neat things about mind maps is that you can actually take pictures of the mind map, post them into other things like a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, and you can post them up online so other students can use them, other teachers can use them. You can show your parents what you're doing in class. Compare and contrast is one of them. Next one is brainstorming. That's the one that everybody knows about. Everybody probably uses mind mapping to brainstorm ideas. And so this particular one was about things that have to do with the color blue. And so you can brainstorm on almost any topic. And what's really neat about mind maps, if you're using a projector in class, or if you're using a whiteboard in class, you can brainstorm with the whole class. The whole class can do this as an individual group, and they can have this collaborative brainstorming tool going with their ideas. And so brainstorming, don't just think it has to be a single student or just a little group. You can do a whole group. You can actually do a whole set of students across the period of the day. You can actually, in some of these mind mapping software websites, you can actually do collaborative mind mapping where students, different times of the day, different areas, different schools can all work on a single mind mapping program. Okay, let's go to our next one. And that's create a timeline. This is one of my favorite ones, is creating a timeline. We're all familiar with creating timelines. There's actually even timeline software. But as you can see here, you can actually even use mind maps to create a timeline. So you just put down the date, and then you go, like for instance here, we've got some stuff on the women's suffrage movement. And so you can do it, you put down the date and then what happened at that particular date. And so that actually creates a timeline. It's really cool. So that's one of those things that we probably don't think that we can use a mind map for, is creating a timeline. So let's look at another one. Categorize. That's one of the big things that we can do with mind map softwares. And actually, we probably do this type of thing all the time, but we don't think that we can use mind mapping software to do this kind of thing. So this particular one is labeling the 6 different kingdoms in biology: the protistas, the fungi, the plants, the bacteria, things like that. And so this is a great way to have students actually visualize their thinking when you're categorizing. And that categorizing is a great big deal in science. It's a great big deal in science. So if our science teachers aren't using mind mapping software, they really need to be doing it. This is a great example. You can categorize biological things, you can categorize physical things, you can categorize chemical things. Almost across the spectrum in science you can categorize, and of course you can do it in social studies as well. So you can categorize presidents, you can categorize types of government. There's all different kinds of things that you can do. So categorizing is a great way to use mind mapping software. Okay, the next one is using it as a study guide. You know, you're only limited on these mind mapping softwares by the amount of software, or amount of memory that's on your computer. So you can make these things as big as you want. So you can use it as a study guide from a textbook. You can use it as a study guide from like a book that they're reading, or a website that they had to go study. They can write it down as they go along. So as they build the mind map as they're studying, it's a great way to go back and see what they do. Now, if you notice on this one, you can add not only notes and you can add categories, but you can also add pictures as well. And so that's one of the things that's harder to do on a pen pencil kind of thing. And so you can actually import pictures from the web into your mind map. So that's a great way to study. All right. So let's remind ourselves of the 10 things that we can do with a mind map. We can organize our research. We can make a syllabus. We can make a KWL chart, which is one of the big things that we love to do, especially in English language arts, those KWL charts. We can create an outline of something that we're doing, maybe an outline of a book, an outline of the work that we're doing in class. We can plan a project. It can be even as simple as a science fair project, or something way more complex, like a year-long something that we're doing. But it's a great way of visualizing. We can compare and contrast. We can brainstorm. We can create a timeline. We can categorize things. And we can create a study guide. Timelines, study guides, brainstormings, KWL charts, they're great ways to use mind mapping software. If you've got inspiration in your room, use inspiration. If you don't have it, there's lots of free online versions of it. You can even download some. There's some great apps that are out there. If you have the iOS devices, mind maps, you need to use them. That's 10 at 10, and we made it. We'll see you next time.